participating with you today. My expertise is in helping managers become better leaders, better bosses, and I do that through speaking at conferences. I do individual and team coaching. I do training, again, of individuals and teams, and I also do a fair bit of writing on the subject of leadership. And my platform is principally coming from my past experience as a entry-level person in a corporation that rose to a leadership position. But that's just a little bit about me. I want to be sure everybody does have a handout because it'll save you some note-taking, and also I've tried to lay things out for you so that it's easy to follow. You'll notice that on my slides, on occasion, there will be a page, there will be a number in the bottom right-hand corner, and that represents the page number in the handout that we're on. So as we go through this webinar over the next hour and a half or so, at least ideally you'll be able to stay on the same page with the rest of us. The objective today for me is simple. I really like to help people become successful, and I want to make some kind of a contribution to your career advancement, to elevating your performance as a leader, by offering you some techniques, some strategies, some tips, maybe some suggestions and some ideas that will help you become a better manager and or a better leader. And my focus today is going to be spending on addressing the differences between managers and leaders. We're going to cover the competencies that I think exceptional leaders should have. And also, it's important to pay attention to mistakes that leaders and managers make, and we'll cover some of those. The thing I'd like you to do at this stage is, what do you think about what you want to get out of this webinar? If there's just one thing that you wanted to learn on this webinar, write it down for yourself. We don't have to type it in or anything just yet. I think what I'd like to do is have you think about one thing you'd like to learn on this webinar, and when we get to the end of the webinar, we'll kind of circle back and see if we were able to give you what it is that you were looking for. Okay? So the format today is pretty simple. We're going to use that handout as a tool, and I'm hopeful that the tool will be useful for you beyond this webinar. I'm hopeful that you'll be able to use it or refer to it from time to time as time goes on. The format for me is I do like to have my sessions be highly interactive. I feel there's great value in that for you as well for me, and it also stimulates discussion. It also stimulates some creative thoughts. So we'll do that with some polls. In the handout, you'll find that we're going to have some action items, and these are things that you can do later if you choose to. You don't have to. There's certainly not an examination going on afterwards, but it's just something that if you're serious about advancing in your career or serious about improving your leadership, some of these action items will be able to help you do exactly that. Depending on the time, we'll have what I call a coach's corner, and that coach's corner is specifically about answering questions you may have about content that we talked about, questions we didn't cover, areas we didn't cover, some discussion about some other topics that are related to leadership, and it was just sort of a free-flowing discussion, and we'll have an opportunity to do that at some point near the end of it. If you've been on webinars before, you're familiar with the fact that we have my poll questions. Let me just share with you my first poll question, because I'd like to get to know a little bit more about who you are and what sort of level of experience as a manager and leader you have. So if you could help me just by clicking off kind of where you fit in that schedule, I'd appreciate it. Give me a point of reference. appreciate you doing this. Looks like we've got some good experience, good seasoned people. Folks I've had a chance to work with within the workforce development have all been great, caring, loving people with a lot of experience, and they work pretty hard at trying to accomplish what it is that they do. So anybody else want to weigh in on kind of where they sit? Let me broadcast for you kind of where we're at. And I think what you'll see there is you've got, gosh, majority of the folks are over 10 years in service. So I sure hope that with my objective I'm able to contribute to that, and recognizing that you're as seasoned and experienced as you are, there'll be opportunities for you to share with the rest of the group kind of where some of your ideas and thoughts on leadership and management. So I appreciate that, but this tells me we've got a pretty good get you to give me some feedback also on another topic, and that is I have presented at a number of annual conferences in the past, and I just wonder how many of you have been in my audience in the past. So if that helps me kind of figure out not to spend too much time on a given area, but we've had some folks in Virginia Beach, Minneapolis, so that was a long time ago, 2009. Well, it looks to me like got a Vegas. That's good. I hope I didn't disappoint any of you while I was there. But it looks to me like most of you folks have, this will be your first exposure to me. So again, I hope I don't disappoint you, don't let you down with delivering on the objective, because that is entirely what I intend to do. I want to talk about the differences between managers and leaders first. And you know, people say, well, is there a difference? Is there a difference? And some people don't think there is a difference between managers and leaders and what they do or how they perform. And in some cases, there are a lot of similarities, but I'm going to ask you what you think in just a couple of seconds, and then I'm going to also share with you what I think the top 3 differences are between managers and leaders. To help stimulate some of your thinking, I have this quote from Warren Bennis that comes out of this book on becoming a leader. And if you want to learn about leadership, or you're just aspiring to be a leader, this is a great book to pick up. I highly recommend it. But Warren says managers are people who do things right, while leaders are people who do the right thing. And then we have Stephen Covey says, management is efficiency in climbing the ladder of success. Leadership determines whether the ladder is leaning on the right wall. Pretty profound. And Ross Perot says, you can manage inventories, but people, they must be led. And I think that's also very, very true. So given that this is an interactive part, I would like to ask you, what do you see as the one main difference between a manager and a leader? And just type in a short answer for me, and then I will respond to some of those. And I see we've got a couple of responses coming in so far. Not as many as participants. Okay, now we got some things coming on. I'm going to open these up so you can see them all in just a moment. segments or section on page 2. But here, let me start with a couple. We indicate that leaders motivate their subordinates. That's true. Leaders motivate their subordinates, but so do managers. Managers should be motivating their subordinates. Leaders tend to inspire people more than motivate them, but there's an element of motivation, so I think leaders and managers can both do that. Leaders provide the vision and managers help direct the workflow to achieve the vision. Very, very good. Nice job. Manager is a job, leader is a learned behavior. Well, that's an interesting way to say it. Manager is a job. Well, management is a job and leadership is a learned behavior. I think that's got a good perspective. Manager supervises the work, leader determines the work to be done. Yep. That's sort of the same thing as Stephen Covey's quote on the ladder. Managers direct others. Leaders are those that are not afraid to do the work they expect others to do. That's good. They're willing to get their hands dirty. Yes. Manager's job is to plan, organize, and coordinate. Leader's job is to inspire and motivate. You bet. Learn the difference between management and leadership. Vision. Leaders have visions. Attitudes. Well, again, I think everybody in management or leadership needs to have that good, positive, can-do, will-do attitude. And here's a good quote. A manager can and should also be a leader. However, a leader doesn't have to be a manager. Leader is someone who can inspire and motivate. You bet. But lead by example, demonstrating dedication and passion. Good. So you see, we've got a lot of you all thinking in the right way, so you kind of have this one down pat. But I'm going to share with you a few things that you haven't really covered yet. Let me just make sure I got this. Leaders, big picture, managers, small picture. Well said. A leader gives more direction and freedom, where a manager is more hands-on. Day-to-day activities. Well said. An ability to make a difference or change versus while managing. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. I'm going to share with you, however, my top 3 differences, and I think give you some ideas about what that's going to look like. And no one's brought this one up, but no one's brought this first one up. But for me, one of the primary differences between managers and leaders are the quality of great questions that you ask. Leaders ask great questions. Asking questions. So here's an example. Think about working on a project. So a manager may say, how is this project going? And the person in charge of the project would say, it's going good, it's fine, everything's good, yep, we're on track, whatever. And you kind of get a question like that, you kind of get I consider that to be a bit of a weak question, you kind of get a weak answer. A leader might ask, what 3 things could prevent us from finishing this project on time? Because really, that's what you want to know as the leader. You don't want to know how, you want to know how the project is going, but you want to know more about what are the obstacles, what are the hurdles, what are the things that are going to get in our way, because you are thinking differently. You're thinking more as a leader versus just somebody managing the project. Let me give you another example. Now, you're all sort of in the customer service business to a certain extent. So the manager might ask, so how do we improve our customer service? And the leader might ask, they might say, so Randy, if you were our customer, what one thing would you like to see us do differently that would make things easier for you? Again, it's asking the same question, but it's asking it in a way that tends to make you think a little bit more. So for me, great questions do exactly that. They make you think, and ideally they make you think deeply, and they get you to think forward. Great questions also cause or get engagement from the person you're talking to. And great questions also generally cause somebody to take action. You see the difference? How is this project going doesn't really get you there. So you want to think forward, you want to get engagement, and you want someone to take action. So here's another example. How do I find more time? You know, I'm busy. I don't have enough time in the day. How do I find more time? But if you're a good leader, you'd ask this question a little differently. You'd say, what one thing can I stop doing today that will give me more time? Okay, it's just a way to phrase it. It gets you to think, and gets you to think deeply. So here, I'm going to give this for you as a bit of an exercise, and I don't really. You can type it in the chat area if you want. Turn this into a great question. I think it's an important issue. You know, if you're sitting there talking with one of your employees or somebody you're working with, and you're the boss, and you're supposed to be the leader of the organization, you say, so Randy, I know morale is bad, but how do I improve it? So you're looking for some advice. A lot of people are going to say, well, boss, but what I'd like you to do is fill in a blank there on that work page 3 and just write your own question in there, or rework that a little bit, see what you think of it. Or if you feel bold enough and want to put it in the attendee chat, go ahead and do that. But I'm going to give you my version of it in just a second. So one thing you have to think about. I know morale is bad, but how do I improve it? So what Randy would say, if he was a leader, oops, let me go back, and I've got a couple of responses up here. Here's one. What is one thing that would make you feel valued? Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good, Lisa. Nice job. It makes you think deeply. It might cause some action and get you engaged. Here's another way to say it. If it were entirely up to you, Lisa, what one thing would you do to improve morale? So that puts you in a position where you got to think about it. It causes engagement, and if there's a good suggestion or two, a good suggestion, you can move on it. You know, so it's great questions. Leaders ask great questions. And they ask great questions. They got to be careful not to ask them in a way that's intimidating or overbearing. But for me, managers are focused on just getting stuff done. Leaders are asking about getting people engaged. Because you see, every great question can lead to another great question, which can lead to a great conversation. And a great conversation can lead to great results. And that's what leaders really are good at. Okay? So here's an action item for you. We're not going to do it now. I just want you to circle this on your worksheet and maybe spend some time on your own with this action item. Think about 3 to 5 subjects that you can prepare great questions for. Maybe they're morale related, maybe they're team related, maybe they're customer service related, maybe they are program related, maybe they are project related. But think about subjects or topics that you can prepare great questions for, so that when you get in those conversations, it comes out more intuitively to you to ask a great question versus just asking a question. Okay? That's not a homework assignment. It's just something that if you want to continue to improve in your development, learning how to ask great questions or learning the art of great questions is an important thing for you to do. If you have an iPhone and you want to have some other questions to make you think like I just shared with you, you could download a free app that we've got. All you have to do is search for sparks on questions. If you don't have an iPhone and you want to have a PDF of these, I should have made it as a download, available download for this program, and I neglected to think of that till it's too late. But if you want, drop me an email that says, send me 59, or send me to ask. Here's my number 2. Leaders have a long-range perspective. And you know, some of you commented, you know, vision, yes. Some of you commented about the importance of looking forward, and I think that's all good. And that's what I'm saying here, is that leaders have a long-range perspective. They aren't caught in, they shouldn't be caught up on the day-to-day activities of what's going on. Their calendar should be 80% full of what's happening 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months out, 2 years out, 3 years out in some cases. But if your calendar is full of what you're doing today, then you're managing versus leading. If your calendar is showing that you've got things going on that are going to benefit you or your organization or your your team 3, 6, 9, 12 months out, then that's providing some leadership. I mean, think about driving down the road of a highway like this and you come across a road sign and it says next service 260 miles. What do? I mean, you see this sign, it says next service 260 miles. Well, you stop, you think, and then you act. And that's what leaders have to do to get a long-range perspective. They need to stop, think, and then act. And if you think about road signs, here's one that was out there in the summer of 2008. Many of us didn't see it, or we drove by it. We didn't stop, we didn't think, we didn't act, we just reacted. So the economy's in trouble 6 months ahead. So wow, okay, good, and they just kept on going. Then what happens is when the economy did go in trouble, organizations started to scramble. You know, there's employers started laying off people by the hundreds and the dozens. They shut down operations, and it was reacting versus planning. And leaders that were able to see this, were able to plan, think, plan, and act on it, they're the ones that really did well during the economic downturn. Recently, we've heard a lot about the fiscal cliff. It was something that was brewing and brewing and brewing and then became very public in the last part of the year. So when did you see the fiscal cliff? Leaders saw the fiscal cliff 6, 9, 12 months ago. So these are things that you want to pay attention to. And here's another one for you. Think about this. There are exceptional leaders needed in this country today, but there are also some 12 months ahead. And the better that you can be prepared to become a better leader, to advance in your career, to contribute more to your organization, the better off that you will be, the better off that we'll be, and the better off the country will be. So keep that long-range perspective. Look at your calendar, and if you're not there today, you know, you're not going to get there tomorrow. It's like if you're trying to lose weight, you know, you can't lose 30 pounds tomorrow, but you can work towards losing 30 pounds over time. And if your calendar has not got a lot of long-range things on it, get there slowly over time. So here's an action item for you. Again, something you can take with you. And that is, what are the 3 to 5 in the next 12 months? What are the 3 to 5 biggest issues that will affect me in the next 12 months, and what will I do about them? Biggest issues that will affect me in 12 months, and what will I do about them? Here's my number 3. I don't think anybody brought this up earlier, but if you did and I didn't give you credit for it, I apologize, but leaders are constantly seeking change. Constantly. Managers kind of like it the way it is. They don't want change. They like their comfort. You know, they're in a comfortable zone. They don't necessarily want change. They resist change. Leaders seek it. They want it. And the reason they want it is because they want to improve things. They want to improve their costs, their efficiency, their productivities. They want to improve their performance. They want to improve the way things are in their organization. So if you are a manager, you like it the way it is. You kind of like the way things are, and you don't want to change. And I say no. Leaders, seek it, and they want it, and they get it. And sometimes we don't like the change. We don't agree with the change. We wish we could resist the change. But progress, you got to have progress on everything you do, so you got to find change. Think about during the economic downturn, Subway sandwiches. You could never get a $5 foot-long sandwich. It was like $6.50 or $7.25, depending on what you're buying. And because the economy changed, leadership had to change and come up with something else. They had to come up with something that was appealing to their customers. You don't think everybody was happy to give up another $1.50 on a sandwich, but look what it did to their business. They continue to thrive in the downturn. They continue to keep that $5 foot-long sandwich product today. They've made a couple of changes to it, but for the most part, if they did nothing, just left things the way they were, they might have not made it through the economy or the economic downturn we just are getting out of. So here's another action item number 3 for you. What are the 3 to 5 changes that you can make within the next 6 months that will make you a better manager and leader? What are the 3 to 5 changes that you can make within the next 3 months that will make you a better manager and a better leader? And again, that's just, hey, it's up to you. I think we have habits. Some habits are good, some are bad. Some we can keep, some we should change. Have a look at those things that you can change about yourself that can help you become a better manager and a better leader. So for me, there are some key points on managers and leaders that we need to pay attention to. I think the key point number 1, they have to be on the same team, and they're both a necessary part of any organization. You got to have leadership and you got to have management. Not to say one is better than the other, or they are different, but they're both necessary. Key point number 2 on the differences between managers and leaders are there are times when you need to be both. You may be in a management position today, but there are times when you need to provide leadership. And there are times when you might be in a leadership position today that you kind of got to roll up your sleeves and become part of a manager. So there are times when you need to do both. The third thing for me as a key point is just because you are one doesn't make you a good one. Just because you are a manager doesn't make you a good manager. And just because you're a leader doesn't make you a good leader. And I think it's important for us to keep that in perspective, because sometimes we all think that we are the manager and therefore we're the greatest. And we're the leader and we're the greatest. Well, that doesn't necessarily true based on title. You have to perform. You have to deliver results. Here's key point number 4 for me, and that is To stand out, you must work hard at improving your skills. If you want to be a standout in any profession, you know, some people, it might come naturally, but very, very few and far between can become standouts at top of their game without working on something. Think of old Michael Jordan and how many hours he spent in the gym to become a great basketball player. Think about how many times people in office have to spend in either careers or in the field doing what they need to do to become promoted, elevated to higher positions. You got to continue to work at your skills, and I think that it doesn't matter whether you're a manager or leader. There should be no entitlement. You got to continue to work at it. So those were my 4 key points. And now I want to talk about competencies. I want to switch over and talk about, to be an exceptional leader, let me share with you thoughts about that very question. Type in here for me, if you could, what do you see as the most important quality, characteristic, attribute of a leader? The most important quality, characteristic, attribute of a leader. These are good. I'm going to broadcast the results so you can all take some notes here in a second, and then I'll talk about each of them as we go on. So keep them coming in, looking good. I like these. I wish we were live. Well, we are live, but I wish we were face-to-face, because for me, face-to-face really works good in this section, because then I can get you to explain yourself a little bit more about when you say humility. What do you mean by humility? Give me an example of humility. And I can give you an example of humility. Let's see, an example, I don't want a recent example, humility. When the guy landed the plane on the Hudson, and you know, he didn't take credit for being an outstanding pilot. He gave credit to the crew for following company guidelines to make sure everybody was safe. And that was a great example of leadership and practicing humility. Here, let me share some of these with you. The ability to see the big picture. Yeah, I think that's very important. We talked a little bit about it. Approachability. That's an interesting one. A lot of people share that, but that's a very, very good one, because approachability, if you don't make people feel that they can talk with you, they can approach you, they can interact with you, they kind of go off and do their own thing, and that's not a healthy thing for leaders. Leaders shouldn't be in a bubble. They shouldn't be in the ivory tower or the corner office. They should be approachable and have the ability to listen, as somebody else says down here. Yeah, the ability to delegate is really important for managers and leaders, and I'm going to share a little bit of, I think I've got something here on delegation, I can't remember. Honesty, yeah, we'll talk about that. Good listener, integrity, understanding attitude, sincere and honest, empathy and communication. Communication is a big one. Yeah, I like that. You got to know, you got to know your staff, you got to know the program, you got to know your talents. You got to be a good communicator, good communication. Lots of communication comments in here. So that's because I'm going to have the opportunity to speak about communication in a little bit more depth in just a few minutes. And, you know, be able to listen to all sides and consider all opinions is a pretty good trait to have as well. Problem solving, that's good. Ability to communicate. Yeah, so these are all good. I like this one too. Leaders willing to do the extra things that he, she is asking staff to do. Yeah, You got to walk the talk right there. That's exactly what that's saying. If you're asking people to make sacrifices, well, it only will work if you make those same sacrifices as the leader. Okay, very good. Thank you for your thoughts. And let me share upon some of your comments, because you're pretty well right on when you talk about the importance of unwavering character. Unwavering character for me is the foundation of every leader. For me, leaders who are exceptional are people that you can trust. Somebody that you respect and you trust because they do walk the talk, because they are consistent in the way that they lead and manage their people. They are somebody who consistently demonstrates taking the high road. There's plenty of opportunities through the course of a day, a week, a month for anybody to do something that might jeopardize your character. And we see it every day in the news. I mean, virtually every day in the news we've got somebody spotlighted for doing something that wasn't high character. And they're in a leadership position in many cases. I mean, I don't need to throw names out there. I think you all know who they are and what they've done. And I just think that it's real critical for leaders to have unwavering character. And the key point for me about this whole issue is people want to work for someone that they trust. You don't really want to have a boss that you can't trust. Somebody that maybe is doing things that you don't think are upfront, legitimate, honest. People want to work someone they trust because then you trust them, and if you trust them, then you want to be there. If you don't trust them, heck, you don't have any interest in being there. So let me give you three items that I think could help you earn trust and respect as a leader. You have to have integrity in everything we do. And that is no special deals for you, no special favors for you, integrity in everything we do. You're honest all of the time. I tell a story sometimes about how my father worked in his retirement career. He worked as a security guard at a horse track. And he was more interested in working at the gate where the horses and the jockeys and the veterinarians came in versus where the people came in. He said it was a little easier to manage. So one day he went and picked up a coffee in the lunchroom, and nobody was in there. And on the floor was a roll of $100 bills, and it turned out to be like, I don't remember exactly, 5,000 or 10,000, but a significant amount of money. And there was nobody around. They have no cameras in this area, so my father had the opportunity to just put it in his pocket and walk away. And he didn't. He turned it in because he has integrity in everything he does. Nobody would have that kind of money at a horse track that didn't own a horse. So the point is, he could have kept it. He didn't. He has integrity. Integrity in everything we do means you never throw anybody under the bus. We know that phrase. You have the opportunity many times to point fingers at somebody else and throw them under the bus, but you don't because you've got integrity. Everything you do, just remember the importance of having integrity. Here's my number 2 to earn trust and respect is you have to lead with consistency. You got to be on the right direction all of the time. If you're going to be a great leader, an exceptional leader, consistency is an important part of what it is that you do. Because if you are inconsistent, one day you're saying this, the next day you're saying the opposite. Next day you treat Lisa a certain way, and then you treat Bob a different way. You can't do that. You have to treat people the same way on the same issues. You have to treat the issues the same way. Consistency is critical to be an exceptional leader, because if you are inconsistent, how can people trust you? What are you going to do when it comes to you? If you lead with consistency, you will earn respect. My third point on earning trust and respect is you have to mindfully develop others. As the leader, it's your job to develop other leaders, in my opinion. We need more leaders. If you were mindfully developing somebody, they will trust and respect you. If you demonstrate that you care about developing John in a certain area, then John's going to feel pretty good about you. And so are the other people, as long as you're doing it in a consistent manner, giving everybody a fair shot at it. But you got to develop other people. You got to be mindful about it. You may not spend half your day doing this, but you got to be able to think, okay, John is really interested in improving his communication skills, so here's a great article that I can share with John. And do something special for John about finding an article that you can share with him or that will help in his career. So give me your thoughts about earning trust and respect. You have a suggestion for the group on some of the things that you do or some things that you would like to see others do that would help them earn trust and respect? A couple other suggestions. I've given you 3. I'd like to know what you think. Yeah, lead by example is one. You know, that's sort of the thing about doing, you know, don't have people do what you won't do. You got to follow through on what they say they will do. Yeah, you got to be following through on things. So if you say, hey Deb, one of the things that I want to do here is I want to do this for you. But if you never follow through, well, you lose your credibility. You know, you gotta be sure that you follow through on things that you say you will do. You want to be part of the team, which means you don't stand front and center all of the time. You want for a holiday function in your office, a birthday celebration, you're the boss on your calendar, you know that's coming up. Well, schedule 20 minutes after that function so you can clean up and help wash the dishes, because you're not so special that you can't wash the darn dishes. You got to have good work ethic. Nice one. And again, that's leading by example. So if you expect everybody to be there by 8 o'clock and you show up at 8:20, or some days you show up at 8:15, some days you'll show up at 8:05, but you're just not consistent in being on time, or you're leaving early almost all of the time, I think that can kind of get old and people start to lose respect and credibility. Respecting your staff, yeah, that's a good one, because if you don't respect other people, you can't expect them to respect you. Yeah, I like the caring part. I think I'm going to cover that in a second too. And let's see. The thing about following through on what you say you'll do, sometimes circumstances might get in the way. Like, let's say, as an example, you say, so Jennifer, by Friday I'm going to do ABC. Well, Friday comes along and you didn't get a chance to do ABC, so you got to get back to Jennifer, and you could either ignore her because you didn't do what you said you would do as her boss, or you could go to Jennifer and say, hey, Jennifer, I know I told you that by Friday I would do for you ABC. Well, listen, I wasn't able to do it because of these circumstances, and I hope you understand and accept my apologies. So now what I'm going to do is get you ABC by Tuesday of next week. Is that okay with you? And you follow through on doing what you said you'd do the best you could. All right, so good. Thank you for that feedback and input. Somebody couple of folks brought this up on that last question. Is, yeah, an important part of leadership is you must genuinely care. Genuinely caring for me is to make sure that if you care about your team, they'll care about you. If you care about the results, you care about, just their development, you care about their lives, and you show them that respect, they'll return it. So the key point for me is, if you don't care, why should anyone else care? If you don't care about the quality of work that you do or that they do, why should they care about the quality of work that they do? If they don't care about returning calls, or you don't care about getting back to people, or you don't care about helping out, cleaning up the kitchen, why should anyone else care about it? So you have to lead that good example, and you have to demonstrate that you care. In a position where you can understand your team's problems. Not just be aware of them, but understand them fully so that you can actually do something about it. If you can actually do something about helping, showing that you care, understanding their problems, then you earn respect, credibility, and your character remains intact. Understanding problems. Here's another thing you can do, is know everybody's career goals. And if they don't have any career goals, help them develop some. Because if you show that you care about their professional growth and development, then they'll care about you. Think about it. If you don't care, you just kind of go to work. You just kind of show up, not knowing what everybody's there for their career aspirations, you can contribute to that, and you should. So you've got to find a way to contribute to their career goals. And the third way, I think, is you can help pay attention to work-life balance. Pay attention to work-life balance, not just your own work-life balance, but those that work with you. Talk to them about, is everything good at home? You've been working real hard, you've been working late, you've been working constantly on weekends, you just don't seem to be enjoying things at work, and if you have trouble at home, you're going to have trouble at work, right? So pay attention to that. Sneak a little, give them a day off, give them a afternoon off, give them an hour off. Make sure that they know that they're making that effort to put in the extra effort, and that you're paying attention to work-life balance. So, recognizing that is some 3 suggestions. What are your thoughts about showing that you care? Give me a short answer on what other suggestions, things that you do, or things that you think good leaders, exceptional leaders, should do to demonstrate that they care. I know we have birthdays and recognizing birthdays and so on like that as an example, and I think if anything, thing about birthdays is, well, happy birthday, let's have a piece of birthday cake, that's good. But find out, go back to the thought of asking great questions. So, Karen, what was your favorite birthday of all time? Tell me why. What was your favorite birthday dinner? Mary, where do you like to go? What is your favorite place to go to? What's your top restaurant or your top birthday gift of all time? Again, that's asking great questions, great conversation. People get engaged. So I'm going to open this up and share some of your thoughts with everybody. Asking questions about the family. Yeah, I think that's a great idea, because everybody cares about their family. They love their family, and they love talking about their family. So especially if you've got somebody who is, in school or college or on a sports team, or somebody doing something kind of neat and active in the community. Yeah, participate in social activities with workers is good. participate, be a good volunteer. Personal questions with boundaries. Yeah, I mean, within boundaries is important because you can't step over the line. Pitching in to help out. You know, balancing, help, you know, make sure you're aware of it and do what you can to help out where it's appropriate. Yeah, so I think, you know, these are all pretty good, and I think I appreciate your thoughts on that. So we definitely want to genuinely care about our team, and there's different ways in which we could share that. Here's my number 3 competency that I'm a big fan of, and it's come up a number of times this morning already, and that is stellar communication skills. Leaders who can communicate, and there's a whole range of communication that's going on. If you can master some communication skills as a leader, you do become exceptional. Recognizing that communication isn't just, you know, talking. You know, it's listening. It's at different levels. Different people listen and learn differently. It's presentation skills. It's a variety of different things. So for me, communication is just not one-dimensional. You know, there was a time when maybe people thought, well, yeah, I told Kevin about that. Okay, well, that's not communication. You know, I mean, yeah, you told somebody, but communication is much more complex than just telling somebody. So for me, communication is not one-dimensional. Let me give you a couple of strategies that you can use and develop to become a stellar communicator. One of my favorites is communication, as a communication strategy, is to learn to develop stump speeches. Stump speeches are typically, you know, I can't see you, so I don't know if you're puzzled by stump speeches or not, but let me just kind of give you a bit of a brief history for those that aren't quite familiar with the stump speech. Way back in the days before CNN News and Fox News, campaign message in a way that was clear, concise, and consistent. And in doing so, they would get to a town, and the town folks would gather around, and they'd say, oh gosh, I can't see the politician, so they would put him or her up on a stump, so that would elevate them, kind of like a little stage or platform. And as time went on, the term stump speech kind of stuck. So stump speeches then became a clear, concise, consistent way to communicate. And the whole thing you want to do there is deliver the same message everywhere you go. Because you can go into room A, deliver a message. Then you can go into room B where there's different people. And if you don't say the exact same things, they're not going to hear the exact same things. And they can, two groups of people can come out of the room with a totally different message. So for me, a stump speech requires a bit of a template that will help you remember the clear, concise, consistent message that you're trying to deliver. So here is an example. Here's a stump speech you can use, template you can use for change. So you get your group together. Imagine this. You get everybody together. You say, okay, this is the situation. Boom, boom, boom. And you tell them exactly what it is, clear and concise. This is what we are doing. Boom, boom, boom. Clear, concise. This is what you can expect. We all need to stay focused on, you know, productivity, customer service, whatever issues there are. Can I count on your commitment to stay focused on productivity, customer service, or whatever the issues are? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. This is what you can expect next, and you're done. So if you're having opportunities for delivering a stump speech for change, for customer service, for safety, for um, adverse situations that are going on. Listen to those that have experienced this successfully. The clear, concise, consistent message of a stump speech is very, very powerful as a strategy for communication. And if you could develop that strategy or develop the techniques required to deliver great stump speeches, I can assure you that you will have people fully engaged. Here's my number 2 strategy for you. Such, really appreciate your effort. Signed, the boss. Everybody likes to get a thank you note for working a little extra overtime or a little extra effort. Some genuine words of appreciation or encouragement. You know, sometimes people are down and out. Things aren't going well. You know, maybe a little handwritten note that says, with a smiley face, keep smiling. Things will turn around. Things will get better. I think if you could think back in your life, you probably received a handwritten note from somebody that was encouraging or showing a sign of appreciation or encouragement, and it made you feel good. Handwritten notes make people feel good. And if you could get in the habit of writing those on a regular basis, it's a communication strategy. It demonstrates that you care. It also demonstrates that you're paying attention and that you do, in fact, appreciate what they're doing. And if you got in the habit of doing those on a fairly frequent basis, but again, being genuine and sincere in doing so, I think you'd find that your support as a leader will continue to grow. And I don't know if you've done any in the last, if you haven't done a handwritten note in the last 3 months, you're kind of behind times. And I think if you're doing it by email, yeah, it's not the same. Anybody can do an email handwritten note. You know, it can copy and paste all day long, but it's just not the same than a handwritten note from the boss saying, thanks for the extra effort. Here's my note. Rally around a common theme that makes sense. Like I use this example of intercontinental hotels. Their focal point within their organization is called Our Winning Ways. Our Winning Ways is something that it means something to them. As a person that might stay at their hotels, it means nothing to me. But it's how they act. It's how they behave. It's a set of 5 or 6 principles that everybody responds to within intercontinental hotels. Think about Ford. You know, Ford was having trouble many years ago with quality of products, so they came up with a theme they called a focal point theme that called quality is job one, which meant that everybody who had anything to do with a Ford product, we had to build quality into it. And then in Texas, you know, Texas, they've had a tremendous problem with trash and litter on the highways and throughout the state. So they came up with actually it was a marketing theme, which is a focal point that said, don't mess with Texas. And the whole message is all about making sure that people don't litter. And if you see something being littered, pick it up, and if you make sure that you don't do it. So for me, a focal point is a great way to rally For me, the keys to a focal point are very simple. You got to have something that is easy to understand. You got to have something that's easy to remember, and a focal point is critical, that everybody on the team feels that they can contribute to the the success of the focal point. So, go back to don't mess with Texas. Gosh, that's easy to remember. Don't mess with Texas. It's also easy to understand. And everybody and anybody can contribute to it, to making sure that we don't mess with Texas. So if you think about what you do and, sort of the things that happen in your day-to-day world and maybe things coming up in the future, what is it that you could do with a focal point? What focal point is necessary for your organization that could help you either improve customer service or do whatever it is that is important to your day-to-day activities? So here's another, those were my 3 thoughts on communication strategies. I want to offer you an opportunity to see if you have any other suggestions on what other strategies or communication techniques might be something that you'd recommend that we could all do. And here, encouraging feedback is a very good one. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, we didn't necessarily talk about listening, but listening is an important communication strategy as well. You encourage feedback, you actively solicit feedback, and if you also are doing the listening thing, I think it's real important. Here's one: create methods of reminding the team of priorities focus. Can be easily forgotten in the midst of work. Yeah, find ways in which you can remind people. There was about the importance of a priority, of a focus, and you've heard stories about in businesses where they sell products. We just got another order, another profitable thing happened today. Here's another one that somebody's suggesting, and that is to show appreciation face to face. Yeah, handwritten notes are good, but it's even better if you could look somebody in the eye, pat them on the back, recognize them in front of their peers, in a way that that is meaningful or genuine and sincere, I think is another great way to communicate. It shows that you care, and it's delivering a message to everybody else that you're paying attention and you appreciate it. So I hope I'm not boring you all, because sometimes our answer quantity is going down. Quality is good, but we're doing what we can here. Let me give you number 4, and this number 4 for me is important. And you must be a great thinker. A great thinker is, getting back to that long-range perspective. You got to be thinking forward. You got to think about your people. You got to think about how they're being trained, how they're being groomed, how they are performing. You got to be thinking. And a lot of times I find that people just are too busy. They're just too busy to think. Because for me, if you can become a great thinker, great thinkers become great problem solvers. We all know that. But a great thinker can also become a great problem avoider. Aha, a problem avoider. Could you imagine being in a position to think things through in advance, and you could actually solve problems before they happen? Instead of firefighting, you've actually become somebody who avoided that fire because you've thought it through and you've taken action in advance. So that's a key point for me. Become a great problem solver and a great problem avoider. To become a great thinker, you don't have to be all that smart. I mean, if you really got to know me, you'd recognize that I'm not highly intelligent, but I like to think of myself as a decent thinker. And I think one of the things that helps me do that is I find time to think. I put it on my calendar. I make a meeting with myself for 30 minutes or half an hour, or for an hour. It all depends on what's going on 15 minutes at a time, and I think things through. I plan and I say, okay, what could go wrong? Ask myself some great questions. Ask myself some tough questions about what's going on in my world. I think if you could become a great thinker, your life can become so much better. It would be so less hectic. Problems I find now is that people don't find time. They don't have the time to think. They react. It's kind of like that example I gave you of driving on the highway. You know, we miss it. We miss the signs. We kind of just keep on going. We're so busy. We're going to soccer practice. We're dropping the kids off here, dropping the kids off there. We've got these errands to run. Got all this work to do. I got all these fires at work. You can't find time. People have a hard time finding time. But I think that if you're a great leader who can become a great thinker, then you could provide thinkership, which for me is the practice of mindful preparedness. Think about that, the practice of mindful preparedness. Being prepared, not just on your knowledge, your experience, and in what it is that you do. You've been doing what you're doing for 10 years, 15 years. Nobody can do it better than you. But if you could become even better by being better prepared to avoid many of the problems and crises that happen through the course of the day, you're going to be much better off. Finding the time to think. And I think I'm going to be in a position to share with you some ideas on how to do that in a few minutes. But I believe NAWDP conference in Minneapolis this May. I think you'll find that if you plan to go, I'm going to do a half-day workshop on thinkership. This exact topic that we're talking about now is the practice of mindful preparedness, that if you happen to be going to the conference and you think you might be interested in learning how to do this better, I sure would love to have you attend the pre-conference workshop I'm going to do. Here's number 5 for you. It's mental toughness. We have all kinds of things going on in our world that cause us stress. It just never seems to stop. The thing that you have to deal with is you got to deal with it. I mean, you got to deal with it in a level-headed manner. And you know, I mean, I've been in situations, unfortunately, in my career where death has happened on the job, at the workplace, a couple of times. I've been in situations where we've had to close operations because of environmental issues that are affecting the health of employees. I've been in situations where there has been quality, millions of dollars of product of poor quality and unsafe quality that has gone out the door that we've had to fix up. It doesn't really matter. You just have to stay level-headed and think things through, and ideally you would have thought well in advance on how to address those, and that's one of the keys about thinkership. But the key point for me in being mentally tough is to learn to be in control mentally, physically, and emotionally. If you can be in control mentally, physically, and emotionally in all circumstances, then you've got great mental toughness. And that takes practice. That takes anticipation. That takes thinkership. A couple of weeks ago, just before the holidays, I I sent out a leadership tip. I do a leadership tip every week, and one of my leadership tips just before the holidays dealt with this article that I found on some stress management tips on how to deal with stress. And I, again, I guess in hindsight, I could have made this, well, I couldn't have made it available as a download because I don't really have it to download. But if you can, I would have put the address you're looking at on the screen in my notes, would have been helpful, and I apologize for not doing that. But if you're interested, this is a website where you can go read, download an article on 37 different stress management tips. 37 different stress management tips that can help you I'm hopeful that you all have been able to write that address down if you're interested now. If you haven't, or if you can't get into it because you wrote it down wrong, just drop me a note. I'll be happy to send you the link. Hurricane Katrina is something I talk about on occasion to bring up my next point, and that is in Hurricane Katrina, when I think of Hurricane Katrina and think of leadership, I think of some of the things that just went wrong with leadership. And leadership that I think about is principally that of Mayor Nagin. Mayor Nagin was a guy who was responsible to make sure that the city is safe. He's got to have things in place. When things weren't working very well with Hurricane Katrina because they weren't well prepared, people needed water, people needed shelter, people needed safety, people needed to be cared for. The leader of the city was spending most of his time pointing fingers of blame versus dealing with the problems. You would first point at the governor. It's the governor's fault. Then it became food, some shelter, some safety. That's your job as a leader. So for me, anytime that I think about an important attribute and competency for leadership is the importance that leaders have to embrace accountability. You have to, you can delegate responsibility, but you cannot delegate accountability if you're the leader. So for me, the key point is if you don't embrace accountability as a leader, no one else will either. If you don't hold yourself accountable, why would anybody else want to hold themselves accountable? It kind of goes back to the same message on you must care. Now, if you don't care, no one else will care. And if you don't embrace accountability, no one else is going to do it either. And you're going to have chaos throughout your organization. You have to embrace accountability. You got to learn how to hold yourself accountable, and you also have to learn how to hold other people accountable. Many people have a hard time holding people accountable, and I'm afraid to say that it's a tragedy because accountability in this country is just not the way it used to be. I don't think. We find that it's easy to just walk away from things. It's easy to feel entitled to things. It feels like we don't have to work for things. We don't really, it's just too convenient. And I get sick about it when I start talking about it. As a core competency that we just talked about is the most challenging for you. Just choose one. What do you think is the biggest challenge for you? I don't know, maybe none of them are, and I guess I should have and could have put nothing. But no, it seems like we don't have everybody voting in yet. And we've still got a few people trying to figure out. I'm not surprised at all that the lowest, and I can share these with you guys now. Let me just open this up so you can see what all your peers are thinking. Communication typically is the biggest challenge that most people have. The second biggest challenge is typically that of being a great thinker. And I see that's pretty close to being, and mental toughness is up there too. But the ones that has, you know, the character, the caring, the accountability ones are, you know, they're not as challenging for most people. But no, I appreciate your feedback on that, and I thank you for that. And it's consistent with most of the other polls that I do with other folks. All right, let's jump over to mistakes. Leaders make mistakes. Gosh, I make mistakes. And I've made mistakes in the past that I'm not all that proud of, but I made them, and I'm not going to ask you if you've ever made any. Leadership position about 17 years where I think I kind of became a little mentally weak, and I made the mistake of scolding somebody over a budget issue in a budget meeting with a dozen of his peers. So could you imagine the boss scolding somebody in front of other people? That was my mistake. You never want to do that. You don't, I mean, I know better. I just had a weak moment. You just don't want to have people who need to be scolded or talked to. Do that in private. You do that behind closed doors just so that the person doesn't feel bad and you don't embarrass anybody, including yourself, because as the leader, what happens? What happens is people think, maybe I'll be scolded, so I'm not going to say anything. Gets back to that issue of approachability that came up earlier. You know, maybe I should not say anything because I don't want to get yelled at in front of everybody. And people start going away from you. Well, fortunately, I had long enough history as a leader with that group that they know I just had a bad moment, so it happens. But never do that. Never, ever scold people in front of other people. But let me ask you what you think then is the biggest mistake a manager can make. I'm going to share with you what I think. I'll share with you a few mistakes, but I'd like to know what you think. What do you think the biggest mistake a manager can make is? Well, not being honest is important. Yep, that's a mistake. You've got to be honest. Inconsistency is a mistake. Thank you. Underutilizing their team, that's a great one, because sometimes people think that they can do everything themselves, and therefore they're not going to, they don't use the resources around them, and next thing you know, you get underutilization going on. Not being a team player, being more of a dictator. Yeah, that's true. Not being a very good listener to your coworkers is good. Being the scapegoat. Let me make sure everybody gets a chance to see these. Put some of these down. Micromanagement, good one. Thank you for that. That's one I'm not a big fan of. Lack of honesty and scapegoating. Yeah. Not treating everybody the same. Yeah, that consistency. Yeah, not trusting your staff, losing trust, not being honest, not setting a good example, scolding in front of or behind closed doors. Well, that's probably true. I mean, you know, I don't mean to use the term scolding as a, loosely. It's not. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to scold people. You want to have discussions with people. You want to scolding was probably not the right word for me to use. Okay, so these are good. Thank you for your thought. Let me see if I missed anything here. Yeah, not accepting responsibility and so on. So those are good. Thank you. But those are good mistakes. Let me share with you what I think are 3 big mistakes that we make. And before I do that, let me share this quote with you from Eleanor Roosevelt. It's really good to learn from the mistake of others, because you can't live long enough to make them all yourself. Because you're going to make a mistake. We all will make a mistake from time to time. But if you can, learn from the mistakes that other people make so you don't make them. And my hottest button on that one is that of a DUI. You see it every day. Somebody is arrested, some political figure, some celebrity, some high-profile person in the community, in the sports world, gets a DUI. And then they get on the microphone or in the press and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake." Yeah, you made a mistake, but why can't you learn from the guys that did this before you? Because think of all the people that have died because of that mistake of driving under the influence. I mean, come on. Take a cab. Be sensible. My number 1 is thinking you've made it. Okay, you think you're the boss. You've got your job. You got your promotion. You're the manager. You're the leader. You've made it. Isn't this great? All your years of hard work are paying off. Well, good for you. Congratulations. Let's celebrate. But don't let up, because you can't just think you've made it. You always have to remember that you still have to deliver results. No matter where you are, no matter how high up the ladder you get to, you still have to deliver results. There is no entitlement. So if you think you've made it, I want to share with you the John F. Kennedy quote, my favorite of all time. Leadership and learning are indispensable to each other. Leadership and learning are indispensable to each other means to me that you've got to keep learning. Congratulations, you made it. Let's just see what happens now if you keep learning. So a suggestion for you. I don't know what you contribute or what you do today to dedicate any amount of your time to professional growth, but look at 2013. It's to dedicate a minimum of 10% of your time to professional growth. If you can make it 15, make it 15. You can make it 12, make it 12. But a minimum, and you may not be there today. You may say, I don't have a clue on how I'm going to do that. And you say, 10% of my time to it. And I'm going to tell you that it's critical that you do it. It's critical. So let me help you find a way to do that. And here's a couple of thoughts. Take a look at this chart for me. I've got 3 columns, 3 times a week, 5 times a week, 7 times a week. Look at the top line. If you could dedicate a half hour per day, 3 times a week, you're going to have 1.5 hours in that week of professional development. And if you do that every week, you will have 78 hours for the year, which equates to almost 10 days, 9 3/4 days per year of professional development. Now, if you could dedicate 1 hour per day, 5 times a week, $32 days, a month, over a month of time dedicated to professional growth and development. Okay, so that sounds really easy. Gosh, I mean, look at if you could do an hour and a half, if you could do an hour and a half a day for 3 days a week or 5 days a week, look what that does for you. Again, it's a month and a half. Wow, so think about this. There's 8,760 hours in a year. If you wasted a half hour per day, every day of the year, that could cost you 7.6 weeks per year. Just math. Half hour per day. Now, you may say, well, I don't waste a half hour per day. Well, maybe you don't, and I'm glad that you don't. But many people do. Many people do, and in doing so, that's where they're being robbed of their professional development time. So what I like to suggest to people is stick a notepad or notebook, take a notebook with you for a month, for the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And every time you find an opportunity to say, look, I'm wasting time here. I've got a situation where I was interrupted by somebody for 20 minutes. Write it down. I was stuck in traffic for 30 minutes. Write it down. I had a problem with, whatever it is in your world. You had a problem with it, but it was considered a time waster. I'm a firm believer in a strong to make sure that they don't rob you of that 20 minutes again in the future. If you're in traffic for 30 minutes, what could you have done to shorten it up to being in traffic 10 minutes or no extra minutes? That 30 minutes is like more than you expected. And if you are stuck, what could you do while you're in traffic that could help you with professional development? What tapes, what could you listen to CDs? What could you do? So in any case, pay attention to time wasters is really my message. If you think you want to continue to be a leader, make sure that you know what's important to you and your organization on leadership traits. So if you say, okay, well, okay, Randy, great, I found this 10% of my time. This is wonderful. Thanks for the advice. I crushed all these time wasters. Now what are we going to work on? What are we going to work on? What's important to you and to your organization? Do a chart like this. Okay, listening skills. It's a strength of mine. You're very good at it. You're competent. You need some help, or it's a weakness. Do a chart like this. Be brutally honest with yourself, and then find what those weaknesses are, and that's the area that you want to continue to get better at. If you go to our website, which is here, leadersedge360.com, you can do a self-assessment. It's free. You just go in there and we give you 30 questions on leadership attributes, and same kind of thing. Is a weakness, is a strength, where do you fit, go to our website, find that thing, and there's a lot of them out there. And we've got all kinds of different attributes that you can measure yourself up against, and that's the key. Figure out, you got the time, what you got to work on. Now you figure out how you're going to work on it. So here's a collection of different ways. You have workshops, seminars, you have webinars like this, and so on. You get all these different ways in which you can work on these activities. Get a mentor. Mentors can help you grow professionally. You got that extra half hour in the day? Read something that's critical and valuable to you. Find something do a role play. Continue to improve about communicating in certain situations through a role play scenario. I'd spend more time with you on the internet and research, and those that were in Las Vegas, I did a whole hour on this whole topic of being a personal productivity champion, and we talked a fair bit about blogs and showed people how to benefit from those. But you've got to continue to improve in even though you've got the job and they never think you've made it is really the key. My number 2 mistake, I think, is if you are not engaging or inspiring others as a leader, that's a big mistake and you're failing. because you are the leader. It is your job to engage, and it is your job to inspire others. So if you're not communicating with your team very well, if you're not demonstrating good character, if you don't have them challenged, if you feel like they don't feel like they have a future, you've got to be on top of it, because you can't get anything done without your team. So you got to be sure that you're engaging or inspiring others. Don't know what happened to my slide here, but here's a suggestion for you. Get a mentor and a professional development plan for everyone. Mentors are free. Professional development plans for everyone helps people get better. Do this, and if you need some help with it, let me know. But for the most part, a mentor, anybody who has a mentor, a good formal mentor relationship with somebody, benefits 10 times to those that don't, and it's free. Some of you who've been to my sessions in the past, I've given away inspirational videos. You know, these are short 3-minute videos that are put on by Simple Truths. I have a PDF I'm happy to share with you, 40 different inspirational videos, all roughly 3 minutes in length. They are just great things to watch with your team. You know, everybody needs to pick me up every now and then, and these things definitely do it. Happy to send it to you if you would like to. And again, I apologize for not making it available as a handout. I wasn't even thinking about that. But if you would like to have a copy of these inspirational videos that you can watch with your team, take home, share them with your family, they're great. They're free. Definitely free. Here's your number 3 mistake, is failing to manage yourself. Failing to manage yourself. It's kind of what I did in that example I gave you earlier of not being all that good. So here's a quote from somebody, we don't know who: if you want to manage somebody, manage yourself. If you do that well, you'll be ready to stop managing and start leading. And I think it's a very true quote. So a suggestion for you on that is to regularly solicit feedback on your leadership. And somebody else had brought that up earlier as I think it was in communication, that, you know, get some feedback. Get it from your boss, get it from your peers, get it from, you know, well, don't get upset. It's feedback. Learn to deal with it and learn to do something to improve. Okay? So here is kind of the Coach's Corner questions and discussions that I'd like to ask your participation in. We've covered a lot of ground. We did some of it fairly quickly. Some of it might be repetitive for you. Some of it be unnecessary for you. But what questions or points of clarity would you like me to make? Type in the attendee chat area. You know, type in a question for me, and I'll be happy to answer for you the best I can. And that would be a good thing. And if you are having a hard time with questions, you know, maybe think about, go through your handout and see what do we cover that you need more information on or would like to make another point about. It doesn't have to be a question. Don't be shy. Come on now. So, nobody is chatting with me. Well, here, let me stimulate some thinking for you. How about this? At the very beginning, I said, what one thing would you like to learn on this webinar? And go back and look at that and say, oh, gosh, questions are always tough to ask people. So if you're not asking me questions, I could ask you a question. I'm going to get you to keep thinking of those questions, but let me ask you a question. Now let me save my question for a little bit later. But it doesn't seem like, it seems like you might want to get back to work, so let me not drag that on. Let me get you to help me with this. On a scale from 1 to 10, 1 is low, 10's high. Was today of good value for you? Let me see what you think, because I want to make sure that if we do these again for other clients or for your group, that we provide you good value. I have a comment that's come in. This is, I had hoped to learn specific differences between managing and leading. You covered this well. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you saying so. That's great. Questions that you could help me with. Here's another question that's come in. Is there a benefit in keeping all team members apprised of what others are working on, even if it doesn't directly impact the work another is working on? So, is there a benefit in keeping everybody apprised of what's going on, even though it doesn't impact them, is the question. And the answer is yes. It's critical, always important, to have the right hand knowing what the left hand is doing, even though they're not doing it together. The right hand and the left hand need to know what's going on. The reason you want to do this as a leader is to make sure that everybody knows what's going on, because that way people stay engaged. They feel like they're part of this. They feel like they're part of something that is important. And they are, in fact, important to the whole equation. So having the left hand know what the right hand and vice versa is extremely important. So please do that. Communication, stellar communication. Good question. Thank you. Let me just if you have other questions, just go ahead and type them in. But here, I'm going to share with you how we did today. So I feel pretty good about that. Most of you are 7 or better. I appreciate it, and I thank you for that. It's helpful to me to know that it was of some value to you. And then I want to ask you another question. Here is this question. Webinar that you think will help you in your professional development or career advancement. And I think the comment I read earlier about he had hoped to learn specific differences between managing and leading, good. So that's the kind of answer. Can we get some of you to be specific on what 1 or 2 things you took away from today that will be helpful? Yeah, I think somebody's mentioning that setting time aside for professional development is a good tip. The mindful thinking is a very good tip as well. So I'm glad that somebody got some benefit out of that. Any others, feel free to just type those in. Asking better and thoughtful questions. Yeah, if you can master the art of asking great questions at home as well as at work, you're going to be awesome. Just think about questions you ask your children if you have them at home where they're going to school. How's school today? Oh, that's not a great question, I hate to say. So tell me, what did you learn in math today? Or what subjects do you find most interesting in social? Whatever questions are relevant to your family, you can extend this great question concept to them. It's really, really powerful. Here's another one. Taking time out to focus on self for the betterment of contributions to the whole. Yeah, that's an excellent list because I'm spent 4 hours on that with exercise that'll blow you away. It's a great subject and it's going to be extremely beneficial. And here's another one, continued professional development. Yeah, good one. It's necessary to be both a manager and a leader at the same time. Yeah, I'm glad you picked that up. That's real important. If you wish to manage others, manage yourself. Good one. Thank you. Make sure you know everyone's career goals. Well, good, because that would demonstrate a lot of things. You want to help them, you care about them, and you want to make sure that they stay engaged and they'll do that and they trust you. Good listening, good communication skills. Yeah, so good stuff. So thank you for your comments. If you have others, just keep typing them in there. In the meantime, I'm going to put another one in front of you. And this is also kind of an evaluation thing. And this is, I'm kind of messing this up because I had a slide to go with it, but it doesn't matter. We're all family here. Answer this the same way, putting in the attendee chat area. Think about the future. What leadership topics or area of professional development do you feel you'd like more help in? This is sort of a help me, help you situation, because if we knew an area that you like to say focus on, I mean, we covered a lot of but if as you think about going forward, what area of professional development or leadership topics interest you? Developing a vision, yeah, that's a good topic. Developing mental toughness, yeah, that's a good one. How to improve communication among staff, techniques, and tips. Yeah, we kind of brushed through that. I gave you 3 strategies. I've done, oh gosh, I've got about a dozen that I typically share with people, and we just didn't have the time to cover all of that today. Keeping everybody engaged, providing a mentor and professional development for everyone is probably a takeaway. Yeah, so I think, if you, I see how this works. If you have a desire to have additional webinars, not necessarily by me, but just by anybody, what are those topics that are key interest to you that would help you with your professional development? And that's what we're looking for there. So feel free to do that. In the meantime, I'm going to give you some close with you this, that leadership is a journey. It is something that you just, you got to be learning something every day. You're going to have peaks and valleys every day. You're going to have hopefully more peaks than valleys, but it's definitely a journey. So for you, now what? What do we do now? We've gone through this webinar. What do we do? Well, let me share with you this. You have to decide whether you want to be exceptional manager, an exceptional leader, or both. Decide what you want to do, decide that you're going to do it, and go to work on it, because you just can't show up at work. You've got to be a lot more stronger, more definitive than what a lot of people are. They just kind of show up. Decide, make a decision, and then be good at it. Assess your skills, make a commitment to improve. You don't make a commitment to improve. Decide that you're going to do it, make a commitment to it. Strive for continuous personal improvement. One of the things that I will do, and I think I'll do this with Kathy, is I'll send Kathy Day a link to my website where you can download for free this ebook. This ebook is my 52 leadership tips from last year. No, actually it was 2011. And they're just short, brief tips. This ebook is PDF format. It's kind of like a workbook. It gives you thought-provoking and practical stepping stones that will help you with your and get it to Kathy, and she will make it available to the group, okay? And if you're interested, I do those every week. Every Thursday, I do a leadership tip of the week that you can register for. They're free, and ideally, they'll help you also. Learn from the mistakes of others. Take notes of those mistakes. You see something going on out there, take note of it. Never forget it. This is a help me, help you. If you have an interest, we have a business Facebook and LinkedIn if you like. We've always got stuff going on there. Follow me on Twitter if you're a Twitterer. I got a blog, and these are just things that are free that can continually give you suggestions, ideas, tips, and advice on how to continue to grow as a leader. We did the Help Me, Help You, and I'm going to check the chat box one more time before I sign off, and I'm hopeful that if I've been able to cover everything that was a question, and I believe I have. I see someone's typing, so I'll be patient. I'll wait. There's a question coming up. I hope, yeah, I'm glad that we got some 7, 8. So we still got somebody typing in something. I don't know where it went. No, it looks to me like we're done. So again, I thank you all for if anything, I got a couple nice compliments at the end. I thank you for your comments. Gosh, you guys are very polite. Very nice, thank you. I'm going to sign off, and I'm going to really look forward to seeing some of you in Minneapolis. I hope you all can make it, and I'm delighted that this was good information for y'all. And I've got